And we also have a written testimony by Lennon Record, who's Tamara's mother.
Okay. Hello?
Okay, thank you.
I'm reading my mother's statement first. As a parent and child care provider, the horror I faced 3 years ago was almost surreal, even more so because the people I trusted not only to provide my child with an education, but to protect her failed to act on policy and procedure that were put into place by the laws and Department of Children and Family Services, which is to report any suspicion of abuse. Instead, when the teacher was made aware of the abuse, not only did she conduct her own investigation with the aid of the principal and vice principal, but she notified the perpetrator, the substitute teacher, and his mother. The following day, I was bombarded by accusatory questions from the principal. At no time was the police called. It wasn't until the actions as a horrified parent became too much to bear, then and only then was the police called. And not even by the school, the call was placed by my daughter's father, Antoine Deshawn Triplett. Then and only then, staff made their phone call to CPS headquarters. Then and only then did I feel the right actions were finally being done for the victim, my daughter, Tamara Reed. They, the teacher and staff, were not concerned with conducting an investigation for the actions their colleague, whose mother is also an esteemed teacher at the school. Instead, they were more interested in painting my child to be some consenting adult through the line of questions. The first question hit me like a wrecking ball, seeking to destroy the foundation of my relationship with Tamara. Did you know about the relationship between Mr. Banks and Tamara? The principal asked. The second question seemed to seek and destroy any foundation that was left after the first. How is Tamara's behavior? All the while, no one presented me with the key evidence that would attest to the crime. I wouldn't answer their questions. I became enraged with anger and demanded to see the phone. When it was finally brought to me and I was able to read the messages, I was horrified at many things. Of course, the obvious being that this substitute teacher is a predator and he made my baby his prey. And the second horror was that I was sitting in a room with professionals who seemed to be blind to nepotistic culture in school. Mandated reporter training and certification is not an option in the state of Illinois. It is the law. It is a policy put into procedure to protect all children. There is no clause to investigate these suspicions on your own. It simply requires the teacher to call the hotline and let the proper authorities do their job and investigate the abuse. Where was the phone call for my daughter? The phone call I received the day before, after school hours, wasn't enough, especially since they literally were holding evidence in the palm of their hands. They should have called the police. Schools within the state of Illinois must know that they do not supersede the laws in which they are governed. CPS should take the same approach for teachers who work outside the scope of the policies and procedures as they do with children who exhibit signs of aggressive bullying, zero tolerance. Where were the crisis teams or just a child psychologist, not just for the benefit of my daughter, but all the children? The support was needed for them as well to understand the gravity of what has taken place, to understand what being a victim of sexual abuse is. Instead, the children were left to their own imagination and began to assault my daughter with their words. Teachers who once thought her as a light began to treat her as a stain on the school. The victim, my baby, was victimized twice. My name is Tamara, and Mr. Banks was my substitute teacher of my 8th grade year. Originally, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this, and in some ways I argued with myself it wasn't worth having to pull myself back into the depths of my grief. But the impact of everything that happened to me, that her as a light began to treat her as a stain on the school. The victim, my baby, was victimized twice. Okay. Sorry. My name is Tamara, and Mr. Banks was my substitute teacher of my 8th grade year. Originally, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this, and in some ways I argued with myself it wasn't worth having to pull myself back into the depths of my grief. But the impact of everything that happened to me that year have been devastating, profound, and far-reaching. They have impacted every area of my life and every part of myself. My life and mind has shifted, and to this day, I continue to be held back and limited in my life because of what happened. After everything, I began to fall into a deep depression. Ever since, I attend Lane Tech School as I once used to. However, my school career is not the only thing that has suffered as a consequence of this and the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. I have also lost my social life. Before what happened, I had an active, vibrant social life, spending time with friends, going out, socializing. These were things I took completely for granted. They were a normal and completely unremarkable part of my life. This is no longer the case. Since then, I have lost my social life, and before what happened, I had lost my social life, and before what happened, it was normal and completely unremarkable. And the inability to socialize freely and regularly, I always isolate myself from others as a wall of protection. So much of my life revolves around negotiating the impact of what had happened to me, coping with post-traumatic stress, and trying to keep myself safe and well. All this takes up time and energy. Time and energy which prior to all would have gone to my schoolwork and social life. This event robbed me of my confidence and self-esteem. My dignity, my self-respect have all been compromised as a result of the crime carried out against me. My faith in myself and my faith in the world have been decimated. I struggle to believe I have anything to offer my friends anymore. I am not the person I was before the assault. And I will never be the same as a result of what has been done to me. I am afraid I cannot live up to the expectations of those who knew me before. I struggle to connect with people and to trust them. I constantly wonder if the people around me mean well or mean me harm. I struggle to find the energy on so many days to fight through the difficulties of this trauma that has been created for me and reach out to others. Solitude and isolation too often seem like the safest option, and so social isolation has become yet another reality of life for me since. Not a day goes by when what was done to me does not interfere with my life or limit the life I lead in some way. It has cost me profoundly in many ways, and it has set my life on a completely different course from the one it would have taken had I not been preyed on the way I was. I have lost so much. Many of those losses cut right to the core of who I am and can never be undone. Thank you.
I can't thank you both enough. I know it's not easy, and it's really upsetting that this even happened to you. I mean, you go to school, your parents are hoping that you're safe, and you go there to just do what you're supposed to do, and you do not deserve this. But I'm sure hoping that after we're done today, that at least the General Assembly comes up with some kind of ideas or legislation that hopefully will prevent this in the future.